Hey guys, I'm going to be responding to a video, or excuse me, a question, or a lot of questions actually, from James in South Africa. He had a lot of questions about why boards do not respond, or the miners do not respond when you're trying to ping them by typing in the IP for the board on your network. So what typically is happening is we have a couple of different boards here, and then you're also going to have a Ethernet connection, and then your main control board. So the main control board, it's going to have your firmware. Excuse me. Sorry. It's going to have your firmware in this chip right here. This chip is not only the Ethernet, but it's also got your memory, it's got your firmware, and it's telling this particular board, it controls pretty much all of the functions. It also is going to be reading different voltages, different settings, that if one of those is kind of out of alignment, then what's going to happen is the board is on, especially the new firmware, it's going to go zombie in an effort to protect the miners. So now it asked about the network possibly causing a problem. Now, always, if there is a power surge, then yes, this board can quite easily, this chip right here, which does come off, it can be very easily destroyed by static electricity, by a power surge. Small power surge is all that's necessary to knock this out. So it's very rare for that unless you do not have a stable power source. So typically what I've found is there's a lot of these capacitors. They go bad quite often because of temperature. And so basically all of these miners, they are designed to be running at 40 degrees Celsius. If they're running in 75, 76 degrees Celsius on a regular basis, they are going to break down very rapidly. All of these components, the capacitors will begin to break down, your relays, your chips, all of the components, they are not designed to operate at those temperatures for long periods of time. Now, I know I get a lot of people who say, well, hey, I don't live in an area that has those type of temperatures, so why does my board overheat? A lot of times is dirty fins. These need to be cleaned on a regular basis. As you can see here, I can wipe off a lot of the dirt. That little bit of dirt right there is causing a thermal barrier between the heatsink and the air. That little teeny bit of thermal barrier is enough to cause the overheating of a chip. When this chip begins to overheat, then it's going to begin to break down. It's not going to function correctly. And one of the best ways to determine whether or not you're having a beginning of a problem is to take the amp draw of the entire miner, and take your amps by your volts, and then you're going to get your watts. There is a chart that will show you what the factory specs of the wattage should be based on the temperature of the board. So if this is at, when you see the hash rates that they're advertising those based on 40 degrees Celsius for the normal operating temperature of this board. if this board is able to be maintained at 40 degrees Celsius, this board will last a very long time without something like a power surge or lightning or something of that nature, or condensation. This particular board went out, if you can see here, this burn spot, because I'm in an area that is fairly humid during the summertime, sometimes because the cold temperature of the air being blown across these boards, we will begin to get some condensation, very, very small amount of condensation build up. And it's usually right here at the top because the aluminum housing is actually colder than the air passing across because it's got air blowing across it. And then if that moisture that's in that air begins to condense, and bang, board's dead. As you can see, this one here, the line all the way across right there shorted completely. So this board is dead. This one is basically no repairing it. I can send this back and they'll send me a new board for like $150 or something like that. And what they'll do is they'll take all the components off. They'll try and use what they can. But this is the most typical problem for me. But I try to reduce that by making sure that my environmental situation is as stable as could possibly be, and I try to dehumidify the air as much as possible to prevent any type of humidity and condensation buildup. So a lot of times, let's say you've just taken your amp reading, and you're going to take an amp reading of the entire miner while it's operating after it's been running for about 5 or 10 minutes. And if you're experiencing, sometimes you will say, oh, well, it's got the right amount of watts at this particular time. So why is it that a week or so later it goes out? Well, it could be that some of the components begin to overheat over a very slow period, due to, let's say, a dirty filter that causes high static pressure, or something that is causing the slow rise in temperature of this board. The most common thing that I have talked to people about is airflow. Airflow and static pressure are the two most important things when you're talking about maintaining the longevity of these boards. When the airflow is reduced, either by, let's say, a dirty filter causing the reduction of the amount of air passing through it, this puts a strain on most fans. I only use variable speed fans because they're able to overcome any type of static pressure. And if you're going to run a large mine, you're going to have to use, high RPM, variable speed, modulated fans, which they're going to base the speed is going to be based on, the RPMs. So if the static pressure begins to drop, well, the RPMs will begin to drop on a normal board, or actually, they'll begin to drop, and then you'll get poor airflow, and because they're not under as much of a load. And well, the variable speed motors, they detect this and they actually begin to go faster. And a variable speed motor will actually sound like a jet engine getting ready to take off when it's under a high static pressure situation, because it's trying to overcome that issue by going faster and faster. So This is one of the many common problems that when it comes to condensation or power surges, there's not much you can do. Now, we do have another board here which I was able to repair. Now, this was a capacitor that I tested, and if you'll see, each capacitor has its ratings on the capacitor. Now, I was not able to find this exact capacitor, but I was able to find a capacitor that does the exact same specs. If it does not do all of the exact same specs, not the same voltage, not the same discharge rates or anything else, then it's not going to function correctly. Now, in this particular case, I desoldered the bad capacitor because I determined that that's pretty much all it was. And then I soldered in a new one, and I epoxied the new capacitor in place. So this board is actually up and running and functioning properly. So there are a few things that you can diagnose yourself if you're very handy. All of the specs for all of the components on the boards are available from Bitmain. They are able to be downloaded, and then you can, if you know exactly what you're looking at, what you're testing, each one of these points can be tested. Each one of these can all be tested to see, and you'll have to, if you're not familiar with how to do that, don't, because it's not going, you're not going to understand it. If that's the case, and you have a board that is not first, one of the first indications is the LED. These control boards, they have in the firmware that they will kick out a board based on if all of the readings that are coming back on that board are not correct. So let's say that a board is only hashing, it's supposed to be hashing at 1300, but it's only hashing at like 600. Well, this will kick out the board immediately. So what you'll see is at startup, you'll see all of the little LEDs on the, this is a S7. So all of the LEDs will light up, they'll blink a little bit, and then it will start running through a diagnostic of the boards. And then you may see that two of your boards or one of your boards stays lit and the other ones go down. That means that there's an issue somewhere in the board. And it could be that maybe it's just dirty, maybe it's got a capacitor that's overheated that needs to cool down. And in that case, what will happen is if you unplug it, let it cool down for a little while, then it'll begin to go back to working correctly for a while, but eventually it will kick it out again. This is an early indication that there is a problem. Now, all of these problems can be solved by going back to the basics of what is required to operate these things. The requirements are that you have to have a equal amount of makeup air for the amount of air that is being discharged by the machine. So if, let's say, you are venting these outside and you just have a duct, which is the most common problem I've seen. I've gone to purchase people's mining farms that they just say, hey, you know, I don't know what's going on. It's costing me an arm and a leg. My hash rates are always going down, and it's not profitable for me. Can you come take a look at, make me an offer on all my machines or whatever? And I'll go through each machine and I'll determine which ones are good and which ones aren't, and I'll make offers on them, or I won't even buy any of them in some cases, because the fact that the people did not know about makeup air, they didn't know about static pressure, they didn't really know how to maintain the boards. You'll see, these will be completely clogged with dirt, debris, lint, whatever's in the air, and they have never cleaned them. They just let them run, and basically that cut the life of this board in half, or even more, by not maintaining them. So this is just a few of the different things that you need to be looking at in order to try and head off problems before they become bigger problems. So as first, always maintain your machines. After the 90-day warranty period, take the fans off of the ends and clean them once a month. You're going to come through and you're going to get all of this off, and they make little teeny brushes, heat sink brushes, that you can use to get all of the grit in between them. See, because you can see it's been cleaned there, but what you have to look at is all the buildup that's on the inside, which is also reducing the amount of heat that can be released into the air because of the thermal barrier of the dirt. Now, if you are able to maintain these and clean these, first I use an air compressor in one of my videos, and I should have explained, always use a moisture filter on your hose, on the discharge hose, because you will get moisture, because when air is compressed, the condensation or the humidity is going to condense, and that's why you're going to get some moisture in the air coming out of a air hose when you're using an air compressor. That is deadly to a board. Little drop of water while these things are running, or start it up when it's wet, and game over for a board. So make sure that that is something that you use. I should have put that in my video, and somebody pointed that out to me as a key thing. Make sure that you have a moisture filter. All right. The next thing is to try not to have to, have dirty boards in the first place by having air filtration. Even the smallest amount of air filtration will greatly reduce the amount of maintenance and cleaning that is required on these boards. Another thing is that change your filters on a regular basis. What will happen is, if you have a fairly tight situation where the air is being controlled, as those filters begin to clog up, we get the static pressure. What happens is, and this is all invisible, so most people do not understand this process, that the amount of air that is available for the fan on the end to draw through the unit becomes reduced. And so what we get is, on the end cap, you got the fan running, and it'll blow some around, but it's starving for air. So this air that's hot will come back around and go back through, and you'll get a recycling of hot air, even though the air off to this side is cooler. It's too much work, and it's too much pressure within the housing. The heat will just simply recirculate around and around and around. I've gotten that question a lot. Hey, I've got air conditioning. I had a guy said, look, I keep my room at 60 degrees or lower. And I said, well, what are your temperatures? What are your amps? What's your voltage? All that. So we could kind of diagnose what was going on. And I said, what is your makeup air? He said, well, I've got a very large industrial fan blowing the heat out, but he's got a box fan blowing the air in. And he was filtering that air. So when the filter was getting dirty, it was greatly reducing the amount of air, causing the recycling. Also, the fact that he did not have more air, slightly more, only a 0.25 inches of water column difference in the what we call static pressure. There's the difference in the pressure between two areas, and that is what happens when you are exhausting the heat from a building and not making up that air at the exact same rate or slightly more. I typically want it to be slightly more because if you're filtering the air, you're going to be factoring in a slight static pressure drop across the filter. And that will help make it so that your static pressure maintains a 0.002 to 0.025. Anything above 2.5 greatly reduces the amount of air available to pass through the boards, causing these boards to overheat, causing these boards to have a much shorter life. So eventually I'm going to be setting up. I'm still working on the latest mine, and once I have my I usually set up a diagnostic table where I'm constantly going and I'm taking apart these machines and cleaning them, and I'm testing all the components, testing all these while I've got it out to make sure that everything is functioning correctly. Now, you will get bad components directly from Bitmain from time to time. So when that happens, what you're going to do over time is you're going to use a statistical analysis in order to determine whether or not it's time to retire a miner. So, and maybe in my case, I don't sell them. I use the parts to repair other miners. So let's say I'll have one board go out. It was just, I'm cleaning it, doing everything correct. But because it had components that were not very good from the factory and they were out kind of higher than normal, but they were functioning, then what I will do is I will use the other two boards, save the two boards, and I will usually, if it's not too expensive, I'll send it out to be replaced or rebuilt, or I'll try and rebuild components like this myself. And so I know this is a lot of info in this particular video, and I'm sure you guys will all have lots of questions. Feel free to ask. The whole point of doing this is to help ensure that we do not have a centralization of our Bitcoins, and then the network will continue to be profitable for everybody. It will continue to become more valuable over time as it is decentralized and stays decentralized. And then I will be going over all of the different things. I'm also going to be giving a presentation on December 7th or something of that nature to a Bitcoin group that's local here. So if you're in the Raleigh-Durham area or anywhere close to that area and you'd like to come see myself, my father, and probably one of my sons, and hear our presentation live, that'll be available. It's on Meetup. Otherwise, Look forward to the video. It's going to be videoed, and I will put it on my YouTube channel so everybody in the world can watch that as well. I hope this has been helpful. There's a lot more information, but I just need to take these and break these up into smaller videos. And if you guys have more suggestions, throw them out there. I will help you in every way I can. As always, like this video if it was useful to you. Hit that subscribe button so that you get more videos like this. I promise more videos will be coming once the latest Bitcoin mine is up and running fully. Once I've got that built out, I will have plenty of time to continue to focus on building more of my Zcash miners, which I'll be making more videos on. I've got more parts here today. I will be doing more videos on diagnosing, going through step by step, how to diagnose boards, how to make sure that it's not a board that is still able to be used, but maybe you can use it by just doing a few tweaks or firmware. I mean, all sorts of different things. There's so many things that we're going to be making videos on. And you guys all have a wonderful day.